Hi, everybody. That's my cue. As soon as I hear the recording in progress, I'm supposed to come on and say hello. Welcome, everybody, to tonight's version of our virtual night sky. It's July the 14th. We're kind of dead middle of the summer. We've had 4 weeks after our 5 weeks after classes stopped. We have about 5 weeks to go before we start them again. I want to just welcome everybody, and I want to do a special thank you to the whole team that put together the program and delivered the program 2 weeks ago without me. I was on vacation. I was doing some travel trailer camping in southern Utah, and I'm going to talk more about that at the very end of the show because that will lead to what we're going to talk about in 2 weeks. But I really appreciate the team, and especially Lawrence Garvey, and especially the chance for you to see a tour, get a tour of the Meteorite Vault. That's very special opportunity, and I'm glad, hope many of you were able to take advantage of that. I also want to thank everybody for coming tonight, especially because, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's this big basketball game and the Suns are farther along than they have been in 30 years. And so so the fact that you're with us tonight and the Suns are playing is good. We're here and we're going to make sure that we have a really wonderful show tonight. I want to introduce my team here. Kim Baptista is your webmaster. She's the one that kind of keeps everything organized and going. She's the one that's going to send out a little survey to you after the program, and you can also write back to her, and she passes on to me all the kind of questions and information and ideas and things that the audience has about future programming and things that we might be doing right or things that we might be doing wrong. So so she does that. Meg Hufford has been my colleague for years and years, and she and I do the outreach programs in the building behind me, the ISTV4. We are almost back. We're going to go full-time classes in the fall this year. We're going to be back in a very large public way, we anticipate, after the first of the year. And so so we're sort of going to take it easy. We're going to get the school open again. We're going to get students into their seats. And then in the spring, we'll open up and invite everybody that's been watching us for a year and a half to come to our programs. I think that'll be amazing. Alicia Hyatt and Alex Blanche are also the students with us tonight. You recall Spruti was one of the team, and she has left the country. She officially flew out about 2 days ago. So so we say goodbye to her and look forward to having some new students join us in a couple of weeks. So just a couple of things. This is a webinar Zoom format. That means you can't just sort of ask questions and do that kind of thing. We don't use chat in this particular format, but we do use question and answer, and we do want you to participate. So if you think of anything as I'm talking, as we're going along tonight, and you want to pop in a question, just go ahead to the Q&A button and just enter it in there. And then I also ask, if you're a young person, if you're a student, if you're just sort of somebody that's watching that might be in K-12 education and stuff like that, if you would just say your grade level, just say yeah, maybe your first name. You're Sue and you're in 5th grade, and here's my question and that kind of stuff. I like to know how many students are watching, and that's a good way for us to keep track and keep communicating. We recommend that you use full screen, which is actually in the lower part of your thing, so do full screen, and you can actually toggle the view of all the other speakers off, so you really only see the name of the person talking, and that's probably the best way to do this. We've got a full program tonight. We're actually going back to the night sky, kind of right where we started when we envisioned this particular program. We thought we'd just sort of like share the sky together. And we, in fact, we found many of our people that watch and visit our program, they actually do that real time. They take their little device, their laptop or their iPad out in the sky, and they actually watch from outside in their backyards or front yards or wherever they can see the night sky. That's going to be a little tough tonight. First of all, we're in summer and we're doing our program, and it's still light outside. The sun really doesn't set until later. By the end of the program, it'll be dark, and I'm going to show you some things to look for. Unfortunately, it's also kind of cloudy tonight, not full on dense clouds, and I think it's going to be actually a little clearer in an hour. And so I'm going to show you all 4 points of the sky and maybe straight up overhead. And I am thinking that something is going to be available to us tonight. If it's too cloudy in the west, I'm going to show you some things to look for in the east, and we'll sort of go from there. We're going to start with that, and then we have a whole bunch of events coming up. And so I'm going to, after I give you a really good night sky tour, I'm going to turn it over to Kim and Elisa for some current events. Then I'm going to come back, and I'm going to do this thing we call Planet Watch. We sort of like are following the planets through their orbits, seeing where we see them, why we see them, where we see them, what they're going to do, how they're they're orbiting, what to look for in the near future as these planets are sort of interacting with us in space. So we'll do that. Alex has a follow-up to the Meteorite program, and he's going to show us a resource that we couldn't quite get to 2 weeks ago, but the Meteorite Center has an amazing website, and so he's going to kind of take us in there a little bit. And there is a little way that you can actually identify your own rock or stone or whatever that you might suspect is a meteorite. There's a way to sort of go through a program and do that. So it'll be fun. And then I'm going to introduce the show we have 2 weeks from now, and that's going to be our hour. So we do have a good hour long. We'll stop for questions and polling as we go along. But so keep the dialogue going, keep the questions coming, and we'll see where we go from there. I am going to just trade. I have 3 devices in front of me, so it's kind of, I guess, a bit of a complicated night in that particular respect. And so I'm going to share something. This is always just a little bit chunky because I have to push this, and then I usually have to wait for a second or two, and then I go like this. And here we go. If you've been watching over time, and we've been doing this now for, I think, over a year and a half, in fact, or coming close to a year and a half, if you've been watching over time, you know that we've kind of used a couple of standard devices. One of them is a planetarium program we use in the Marston Theater, and you'll see that in the next segment. And when we do the planets, I'll sort of like fly you around the solar system. This is actually something you can have at home, and I think we've talked about this before. If you, I'll give it a credit. It's called Sky Safari. This one is called Sky Safari Pro. And what I'm showing you, the big, huge, dark blue in the center of this, everything that isn't green is in the night sky at 8 o'clock tonight. I'm going to give you a little time check here. See down at the bottom, it says July the 14th at 8 o'clock and 13 seconds this PM. And so I'll turn that off because it gets in the way a little bit. But this is kind of what's up. And there's a lot going on here. I think this is the time of year that the sky is kind of in transition a little bit. Some of the characters we saw earlier in the summer are starting to kind of move towards the western horizon and start to fade out. We're getting new characters sort of just joining us in the eastern part of the sky. And so I really do have something to show you at all 4 cardinal directions. I'm going to finish in the west because that's where the planet stuff is happening. Mars and Venus are right next to each other. I'm going to kind of finish this little talk over there. But to start with, I'm going to go north. And so we're going to kind of, I'm just going to spin our little sort of program around here. So now the north is your horizon right here. Again, everything that is green on the screen is below the horizon. Everything that is above the green is in the sky right now. I also use this little trick where I do a screenshot, and that gives me access to a little pen so I can draw things. And of course, the big dealie in the northern part of the sky is we always kind of start with the Big Dipper, and I can outline that for you right here. 7 very prominent stars, very easy to find in the sky. And I want you to note that in the summertime, in this particular time, the handle of the Dipper kind of points in this direction. So it's kind of pointing up into the sky. Over time, right, in 3 months from now, the Dipper is actually going to be sort of on the horizon over this way, and the little handle is going to point that way. And 3 months after that, same time of night, we're going to find the Dipper kind of over here, and its handle is going to be pointing down against below the horizon again. And then 9 months from now, the Dipper will sort of be back up in this part of the sky, and the handle will be pointing back up sort of in this direction. That's really important. I'm going to show you how to find your way around the sky by following the handle stars and where they go. But before we get to those particular positions, let me erase some of the stuff I have on the screen here. And before we get to that, the other thing, of course, that I think everybody that has been a Cub Scout or a Girl Scout or sort of around the night sky knows that these 2 stars at the end of the bowl over here is called Meteorite and Doobie. And Meteorite and Doobie, if you sort of like just follow they just kind of point this way. And you're going to kind of aim us towards this star. This is the North Star. It is Polaris. It is just over the pole of the Earth. And so as the Earth spins underneath Polaris as the Earth spins and the night sky is fixed, then what appears to be happening is the whole sky appears to go around in a big, huge, gigantic Ferris wheel circle. And that's kind of how we sort of use the North sky as not only a teller of time of year, but it's also a teller of time. If you watch long enough, in any given evening, in an hour, Merak and Dubhe are going to be down here, and in 2 hours, they're going to be down here, and in 3 hours, they're going to be down here. And you can see in each case, they always sort of organize themselves to point at the North Star. So it's not only an astronomical clock of time, hours, it's also an astronomical clock of seasons and months and things like that. And so that's really a really great place to start. It's always a good place to start a journey. If you start a star watching session, if you go out at night, and kind of wanted to enjoy the star. This is always where I start. I just kind of get your bearings, get your north, get yourself focused on Polaris, note where the Big Dipper is, and that kind of starts your journey. Okay, I'm going to clear this now, kind of go back to a live screen and just kind of move up a little bit, because I want to show you again really quickly how that pointing system works. Another little screenshot here. This time I'm gonna, so here's your Dipper again, right? We were just here, and these are those stars, and I want you to sort of find this arc, and you're going to say to yourself, arc to Arcturus, just like that. That little arrow, that Dipper handle, just like the pointer stars always point towards the North Star, the Dipper handle always arcs towards the stars in this part of the sky. And so no matter what time of year it is, right, if it's pointing down towards the horizon, that means those stars, Arcturus and this blue one right here we're going to talk about in a moment, are below the horizon. And so that's it. Arcturus actually is part of a constellation called Bootes. Bootes is one of my favorite constellations. Anybody that's known me knows that I think this is the really cool. Bootes is known as sometimes the herdsman. Sometimes he's a wagoneer, a guy driving a wagon. And sometimes he's seen holding little leashes. And there's a little obscure constellation over here that hardly anybody can see because it's too dark. And it's actually 2 hunting dogs. It's called Canis venestici. And sometimes Bootes is seen sort of holding little leashes and attached to these particular dogs. Some people see it as a kite. I guess I can sort of get that. I can sort of do a little kite thing, sort of with the ribbons coming down this way. That's not bad. Some people see it as an ice cream cone. I guess I kind of like that idea too. So you sort of have a little ice cream cone with a little cherry on top. All of that sort of works. But Bootes is a very prominent part of our sky, and you find it by arcing to Arcturus, the alpha star of Bootes, and then you know you're at the sort of the base of that particular character. The character also is associated with the son of Demeter, and as such, he actually is also credited with inventing the plow. And so, if you remember, there was a big transition in civilization from hunter-gatherer, where we had to chase our food across the countryside, to agrarian, where we could actually till the soil, we could plant our own seeds, we could do that kind of stuff. Bootes just happens to be in the night sky during the planting season. So he appears in the evening in the east in March and April, just in spring when it's time to get your crops going. And then he sort of travels across the sky all summer. You can see he's really, really high and prominent in the sky right now. And then over the course of the next several months, August and September and October, you'll sort of see him fading out towards the west. And by the time it's time to bring in your crops, it's by the time the planting season is over, Bootes will be gone. And he'll just reappear next spring, and the whole process kind of happens again. So that seasonality of how the Dipper works also is apparent in some of the bright stars in the sky and the constellations that make them work. So it's really no coincidence that he's a summertime constellation. That is by design, and that is sort of to mark the seasons. All right. I'm just going to take you a little bit farther, and we're going to get into the trail that we call the Zodiac. So if we arc to Arcturus, then we can also spike to Spica. This little star right here over in is a star. It's the alpha star. It's the brightest star. It's called Virgo the Virgin. It's one of the constellations of the Zodiac. And once there, you can start finding your way around the sky. If you go in this direction, we'll show you in a minute, in the southern part of the sky, you're going to find Libra and Scorpio, and then later in this month you'll start to see Sagittarius. If you go this way, right, you're going to find Leo, and before Leo is Cancer, and Gemini has already set, and we won't see that anymore. At any given time, there are 6 constellations of the zodiac in the sky. And this time of year, in the summer, it's very, very easy to orient yourself because you have this clue. You've got the dipper, you've got the handle, you arc to Arcturus, you sort of acknowledge the ice cream cone of Boötes right here, and then you kind of keep going, and then you sort of end up at Spica. Spica also means ear of wheat. So as I was talking about Boötes and Demeter and the goddess of fertility and growing things, and the harvest and all of that stuff, she is always has sort of seen or shown or depicted in ancient artwork as holding a little sort of sprig of wheat in that particular hand. The hand that's hanging down right here is the one that sort of ends at Spica. And there's like a little sprig of wheat that just sort of like shows up here, and you'll find it over and over and over again. Some constellations change over time. Some people, kind of do different ways. People talk about them different ways. Sometimes they change names, sometimes all this stuff. But Virgo and Spica have been the same, and is the same through artwork throughout history. So that's a really good place to start. All right, we just did the north part of the sky. And we just did the kind of central part of the sky. We found our way down into that trail of zodiac signs. Now I'm going to spin us completely around. We're going to go look at the southern horizon now. So I started you out at the northern horizon. We saw the dippers. Then we went to the full sky and saw how the dippers point in different locations. Now I'm going to kind of just take you down here. So just back to my drawable screen here. This was Spica. Turn my pencil on. This is Spica. And here's the dipper handles, right? So just in reverse. Now we're looking at the southern sky. So it's happening above our heads over this particular way. And then we sort of like find Spica. And so I'm going to just show you a couple of things going on here. First of all, the Virgo, this particular constellation, is really quite big. It actually encompasses a lot of this part of the sky, and all of these stars take up. So it really is quite long. Her head, I'm not very good at the artwork here, and I didn't practice before tonight, but her head is going to hang this way. She's usually holding some sort of staff or something over in this hand, and again, her other arm comes down here, and she's clutching in this hand a sprig of wheat. If you just follow up in this direction, I'm going to show you when we get to the talk about planets and stuff like that. These stars are starting to be associated with the constellation Leo. I'll get to that in a little bit, but I wanted to show you what's going on down here. These 3 stars right here are a constellation called Libra. Libra is the scales, and they're sort of just right at the feet of Virgo. So you sort of see how this works. If you want to just draw yourself an imaginary line tracing through here. It passes right by Spica. It goes almost through the center of Leo. It goes over this way. And we call that the line of the ecliptic. And you're going to find the planets and the moon and everything near that. And you're also going to find along that line all of the constellations along the way. So you've got your scales here, sort of make up this part of the sky. And then right below the scales is the Scorpion. And Scorpio, I really love this constellation because, well, really for a lot of reasons, but one of the things, this is a constellation that looks like what it is. Scorpio is easy to find. It's very distinctive in shape. It's up this time of year. If you get a good view of the southern part of the sky, you'll see it. And let me just I'm going to erase some of our characters here so I can get some stuff out of the way, but I want to talk about some of these stars in particular. The alpha star of Scorpio is a star called Antares, and it's a very, very bright red star. It's also known as the heart of the scorpion, and you can sort of see how that works, right? If you put a scorpion body this way, his little pinchers are kind of up in this particular direction. That puts his head just sort of like right here. Scorpions have lots of eyes, legs coming out. Of course, the long tail goes back this way, and this is the stinger at the end over here. All of that stuff sort of makes sense, and just remember sort of this one is called Antares. This actually also lies along the ecliptic, line of the ecliptic. It goes approximately about right here, and Mars travels along this line. It's not here right now, it's over in the western sky, but as it goes through its motion, every once in a while it will pass just right by Antares. And some people sort of remember this is because Mars's Greek name is Ares. And so you could have Ares and Antares in the sky at the same time, and they look remarkably similar. The red planet Mars takes on the same shade and everything as this particular star right here. I also want to point you to two other stars that people don't really talk about very much. Just flanking our Antares right here is a little one here, and they both have the same name. They're called, oh, I might not be able to spell it right, L-Net. And this, we run into this every once in a while. So if you look at star charts and all this stuff, you think everything has a distinctive name and everything doesn't, you know, it all belongs and all of that stuff. In this particular case, both of these stars are associated with this particular name here. And the name literally means arteries. And so you can sort of see how that might work. There's the heart of the scorpion right there. And so this is one of the two artery stars right here, and the other one right here. So there's a little trivia that you probably don't hear very often. I also love the names of the stars in Libra. So if I can just kind of put it back on the screen here a little bit. Remember, here's your scales. And they have these really funny names. I'm not going to write them out because they're really long, but this one right here is called Zubin el-Janubi. Zubin el-Janubi, and the one over here is called Zubin esh-Shamali. Zubin esh-Shamali. This one is actually Brachyan. It doesn't have a Zubin name. But so those three stars are sort of like set the character of the scales, and sort of like get the weights in the right place. And so, but Zubin el-Janubi and Zubin esh-Shamali translate into Northern Claw and Southern Claw. And so that's really interesting to think, right, that the scorpion is right here. We sort of think of this constellation as contained within this little area. The territory belongs here, and up here belongs to Libra. Libra, but indeed these particular stars right here sort of have this kind of like passing reference to being above the claws of the scorpion, and that's part of its season. We aren't going to talk much about it right now, but just next in line is Sagittarius. It's sort of marked by this little T-part shape right here, and the Milky Way galaxy you can see going through here. So I'm going to kind of leave this particular sky right here. We started with the Dipper. We found Arcturus, a very bright red star high in the sky right now. We made our way down to Virgo, and with Spica, we were able to identify where she is. And then you can go Libra in one direction, Leo in the other direction, and you're starting to find your way through the night sky and starting to identify all those signs of the Zodiac as it go along. One more constellation, my favorite in the whole sky. Some people ask me, I always say they're all my favorites. You can't have a favorite, but I love this one because it's called Oviuscus, and it sort of is this particular shape right here. And one of the reasons to show you this is I did some photography 2 weeks ago while I was out on my vacation, and I captured this part of the sky. So I'm going to show you at the end of the show some of this work as a star field above Zion National Park. So the main thing about Oviuscus, actually there's lots of stories about him and it's really wonderful, but there's another constellation that intertwines with him. It's called Serpens. The Serpens' tail is over this way. Serpens essentially crosses right through the constellation of Oviuscus, and then Serpent's head is up over on this side. And so this character is always known as the snake charmer or the snake bearer. He's also the first surgeon. And that's all important because snakes, and we'll talk about this more at a later show, snakes have always represented medicine, the secrets of medicines, reincarnation. All of those things have happened throughout history involved with snakes because of the way they go dormant. They shed their skin, they look like they die, and then they just kind of come back to life again and start making their way around. So they've always been revered for that. And so this idea of snake charmers, of people that can manage friendship with snakes, communication with snakes. You've seen it in Harry Potter, and you see it at the in the Jason and the Argonaut story. You see it over and over and over again. But how snakes represent medicine, represent the medical profession, in fact, and all of that stuff. And it plays out in the night sky here. All right, I am going to quit the southern part of the sky. We've got one more place we've got to look, and I'm just going to check my time right here. Yep, I've got just enough time to point out what we call the summer triangle, because its rise is a little bit late in the summer, but it's up and it's here. And we get to look at it, and I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Let me just orient myself so I see where I am here. So now we're on the eastern part of the sky. Everything below in the green is below the horizon. Everything above, of course, is in your night sky. Here you see that Milky Way tracing through the sky again. Let me get a little pencil out so you can see that. I'm going to make the Milky Way blue this time. There it is. Hang on a second. Now I got to change my pencil back to white. The triangle is actually formed by this star right here, this one right here, and this one right here. And so the triangle is an asterism, and it's very famous. It's easy to find. These are very, very bright stars. We're going to do a more detailed dive into this particular group of stars later in either 4 weeks or 6 weeks as we get a little better, because it'll be, now that it's in the east, now that it's arrived, we're going to be able to see it for a while. The stars are alpha stars of 3 different constellations. And so you have down here, this one is called Altair, and it is associated with a constellation called Aquila, which is an eagle. And so I can just sort of like point that. Altair is here, wings out this way, wings out this way, and the feathers out this way, talons out this way, and the little head and beak over here. So you see an eagle in the sky there. Actually, that's not a bad little drawing, right? The other reason to point this out is that oftentimes you see in the talons, this guy is holding lightning bolts. And so if you sort of might have noticed this time of year, we seem to have something of a monsoon going on. Sometimes people call this the Thunderbird. Some people, cultures around the world have actually associated with the bringing of rains and storms and those kinds of things. And so it's important that it's here, because towards the end of our summer, starting about now or a couple weeks ago and going on into August and September, is our rainy season. And it is sort of, it's appearing because the eagle is in the sky. This star up here is part of a little tiny constellation. The star is called Vega. You might know that. That's famous for a movie at least, or 2 or something like that. It's probably the brightest star in the triangle, and it's pretty easy to find. It's the one that rises first. This one right down here is called Deneb, and Deneb literally translates tail of the hen. Deneb is part of a constellation called Cygnus. That's the swan. It has this really long, beautiful, elegant neck that follows the line of the Milky Way. The tail sticks out in this particular direction, and that's where you find the star Deneb. The swan is sometimes associated with Zeus, because one of his tricks was to disguise himself as a swan and come down and seduce the ladies, and he had lots of tricks like that. So anyway, 3 constellations, 3 stars, the summer triangle, and that's an easy thing to find. All right, I haven't left myself much time, but I'm going to just introduce you to the western part of the sky, and I'm going to show you right here what's going on. Look at this, how close Venus and Mars are. Let me put my little time button up here, and I'm going to go back a day. Watch Mars and Venus as I just go back. So last night at 8 o'clock, they were like that. The night before at 8 o'clock, they were like that. This is what we call a conjunction. They don't actually have to cross each other. They don't have to like just sort of meld, but they have to get really close to each other, and that's what happened 2 days ago. If I go back a little bit, watch the moon. So the moon was down here on Sunday, little tiny crescent moon, and by Monday, the moon had moved all the way from down in the lower right up to sort of the upper left and moved along. And that little thing will happen every 28 days. So Venus is going to be in the sky for a while. We've got it for months and months and months. And every single time the moon comes up, it'll be a little crescent and it'll just miss Venus, one side or the other, or just get past it or just get around it about once every 28 days. So I'll try to alert you as we do the program to those kinds of things. Anyway, I am going to just want you to really, really study this for a second here, the movement of Venus and Mars. And I'm going to show you 1 week from now. This is Wednesday, the 21st. Venus is going to be right next to a star called Regulus. Regulus is the alpha star of Leo. Remember, Leo is here. Virgo is just up a little bit. And then 1 week after that, watch Mars. Mars will be passing by Regulus. So we have these two things to look at. So by the time we have our next virtual night sky on July the 28th, we'll be sort of looking at this particular scene in the sky. I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna turn you over to Kim and Alicia. They're gonna take the next section of this particular program. But remember this scene. Remember what's going on with Venus and Mars and Regulus. I just sort of want you to sort of just remind you how this is working back to today. And then when we come back from the break, I'm going to show you what these planets are actually doing in space and how these alignments look if you had sort of a top-down view of our whole solar system. Okay. Hey, thank you very much for your attention. I know that was a lot of material. There's a lot going on in the sky. And please, I hope there's been plenty of questions and we can sort of get to them as we go. Now I'm going to turn you over to the team, and we've got some poll questions, we've got some live questions, and Alicia and Kim will kind of take you through some current events. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Before we jump into current events, I think we will probably do our poll and questions first, I believe. So if you haven't asked your questions yet, go ahead and type them in our Q&A, and Alex will come on shortly and answer those for you. But I am going to go ahead and launch our poll, our first and only poll of this evening. And that is a two-parter. It has two questions. And the first is, where are you viewing from? So are you from Arizona, outside of Arizona, but the United States, or outside of the United States? And then our second question is, how many constellations are there in the night sky? 66, 88, 112, or 157? So go ahead and cast your votes now, and don't forget to type in your questions for Alex, and hopefully we have a few for him to answer if he wants to pop on here.
So we don't have many questions. One second. So we don't have many questions. We do have one that came in pretty early in the night, but I think it's something that we can focus on since it's the namesake of our program. Valerie asked earlier, who is the Marston Theater named after? You know, that's the name of our program. It's the name of our actual physical theater we have on our ASU campus. And Meg Hufford, a member of our team, gave a great answer. It's named in the honor of Susie Marston. She's been a very generous benefactor to the School of Earth and Space Exploration and ASU. She's done a lot of charitable work with ISTB4, with the building and the theater's in. And so that's what the theater's been named in. That's what the program's named after. And she's visited numerous times. And that's kind of where we got our namesake. And actually, we just have another question. Janice just asked, please explain the criteria for constellation and asterisms. Well, the original constellations that we see in our night sky, the Western constellations, are mainly just the ones that the Greeks and the Romans came up with because they were the most popular when the constellations were really focused on, and then astronomers from that point on just kind of always used them. Sailors, and they just became kind of, the Roman Empire was huge. It became kind of the global standard, and it's just been accepted by that. Asterisms, again, it's mainly just the culture. the constellations and asterisms are just structures in the sky that we happen to see. So it's whatever really is popular at the moment, and those just happen to be the most popular. Who knows? In 500 years, they may be completely different. We'll never know. But it's basically just the culture.
Let me add something. I'd really like to just invite people to do their own asterisms. Remember, I was talking about boaties, and I said that some people see an ice cream cone, some people see a kite. You could do your own. There's nothing magical about them. The Big Dipper is actually an asterism. It's embedded within a bigger constellation called Ursa Major, which is the Great Bear. But the asterisms the triangle asterism I just showed everybody is actually takes stars from 3 different constellations to become that great triangle. There are crosses and there are circles and there are all kinds of things. The teapot and all that kind of stuff are in the sky. So those are typically, as Alex was saying, they're typically kind of localized or cultural sort of affects on these the star shapes and things like that. Constellations are sorted out as part of the poll question here, but all of the sky is encompassed by some constellations. So think of them like counties in a state. There isn't any part of the state of Arizona that isn't part of some county. The entire sky is also, every piece of it is part of some constellation. There isn't anything left over. And so you can kind of think about constellations almost like that, like little kingdoms or city-states. And the things around them belong to the constellations. That's a good way to think about it. Good question. I love that one.
Wonderful questions. Thank you so much to Rick and Alex for answering those for us. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. And our first question, where are you viewing from? Most of us are viewing from Arizona, which personally surprises me because there's a game on. So that's exciting to hear. And then our second question is, how many constellations are there in the night sky? And 42% of us got that correct with 88 constellations. So great job. I'll share those results really quickly with you. And so now we're actually going to move on to our next section, which is current events. So I'm going to bring up my partner, Kimberly Baptista, if she wants to join.
Okay, let me get my screen here ready for everyone. I can share, I think. Okay, this is Elisa's handiwork here.
Kim, you and I are sitting in the same place. Look at that.
We are.
We both have the same building behind us.
Eventually, we'll both be there at the same time.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm here to share some current events that are coming up. And the first one will be with our partners over at the Interplanetary Initiative. It's the Why We Go series. It's the last one. And it's as NASA is preparing for the first manned mission to Mars. The Why We Go series explores the fact and the fiction of Martian terraforming. Is it possible to shape another planet to make it habitable by humans? This will be with our own Jim Bell from the School of Earth and Space Exploration. And Lindy Elkins-Stanton will be the moderator, and they'll have a guest, retired NASA astronaut Jeffrey Hoffman. So I will be sending out the registration link for that. So I would invite you to join that. And then our next event that we'll be having will be, Rick and I will be out at the Boyce Thompson Arboretum on August 28th. That's a Saturday evening, 30, and maybe some of our team members will be joining us. But I will also send out the link to that because you do need to pre-register and purchase a ticket to attend. So if you'd like to see Rick in person giving this talk, I would invite you to join us next month.
That should be a lot of fun. And we actually have we've got a plan for a night sky if it's completely uncloudy and we have a beautiful night sky. And we also have a plan for a program in case it's totally cloudy and we can't do that. So I think that would be something good for people to go attend. If you've never been to Boyce Thompson Arboretum, it's a really lovely place to visit too. So
hopefully we won't have any rain.
I know.
And then the last one that I keep reminding everyone about, if you're looking for something to do, I would encourage you to make a drive down to Tucson. I'm going to plan to do that in the near future, but we do have some items on display down at the Arizona Historical Society exhibit. And I do believe that you need to purchase tickets for that as well. And again, I will include all of these links in our thank you email coming out, and probably come out on Friday because I have some other news that I'll be sharing in that for you. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Alicia, and I'll do the slides for you since we're sharing them tonight.
Thank you. Oops, these polls keep coming up for some reason. All right, I'm going to end these polls again. But thank you so much, Kim. Sorry, they just keep popping up. All right, so comet in the sky a little ways from now. So mark your calendars. Comet Bernardinelli Bernstein is coming to a telescope near you. So for the first time in humankind's existence, this comet is making its journey from the Oort cloud, and we will be able to see it in telescopes, hopefully in 2031. So this is very exciting. It's the first time humans will be able to study it because it's believed to have a 5.5 million year orbit. So it takes a very, very long time for this comet to go on its journey. And it's the first time in our existence that it'll happen. So make sure you mark your calendars and make sure that you are near a telescope at that time. And next on our current event, we have some big news in space. We have space tourism. So Richard Branson became the first billionaire in space this past Sunday, and this accomplishment is another phase of change in space exploration with a civilian commercial crew going into space. So this was big news, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more about civilians going into space in the near future. And last but certainly not least, NASA celebrates the 10th anniversary of the Dawn spacecraft reaching Vesta. And so the NASA Dawn mission explored and orbited Vesta, giving scientists over 172 gigabytes of data that was collected through this spacecraft and through documenting. So that is very exciting. And so this 10-year anniversary is especially special because the School of Earth and Space Exploration's very own research professor, Dr. David Williams, was instrumental in working on this mission with NASA. So make sure that you learn about this mission and you look at all the amazing images and data that we collected from this mission on ASU's website and also NASA's website. And with that being said, I believe we're going to turn things back over to Rick, and he's going to take us farther on our night sky journey.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again, and I just did a little time check. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but we are spot on time. Everything has been clicking. What did we do right?
Yay!
Yay! I know.
It's all in practice.
7/14/21. It's perfect.
I'll try to change all that now. So anyway, here's what I wanted to do. So I'm going to take you kind of into space now. So remember, I made a big deal about sort of the positions of Mars and Venus and how they're interacting with each other in the western part of your sky. Now we're going to kind of take a look at those planets in space to see what happens. And while I kind of set this up, I also wanted to acknowledge somebody asked a really interesting question about that they had heard that there's some noticeable wobble in the moon and that there might be implications about that wobble sort of affecting things and tides and all that stuff. So I have to sort of be absolutely truthful. I have not heard anything recently, or I haven't read the same material that you might have read, but I do know that the moon actually does interact with the Earth in various ways. It's got a very, very complicated orbit. It changes position and distance and shape of its ellipse over time. It also does this thing called libration, where it actually sort of moves, twists, one face is always towards the Earth, but that's not exactly true. It twists a little bit sometimes and exposes a limb on this side, and then twists a little bit back and exposes another limb. So there's lots of very, very complicated Earth gravity, tidal motions on the moon. And so I'll try to do some digging around and see if I can find the reference that you had that you were kind of talking about. We'll see where we go. Planet size up. So what I did is I started with a little view of the solar system, and now I've made the planets a little bit bigger so we can see them. Wouldn't it be wonderful if they were actually this big? They're not. So just want to show you this. And this is the inner part of the solar system. So you can see here, the blue orbit is that of the Earth. Of course, the next one in, the yellow orbit, is Venus, and the one kind of right next to the sun right here is Mercury, and this is Mars in its orbit out here. So These are the three inner rocky, or four inner rocky planets, including ourselves. If you sort of score a line through the Earth and the Sun over here, everything on this side of the solar system right now is visible in the evening sky. Everything on this side of the sun over in this particular direction is visible in the morning sky. And so before I forget, because I'm going to talk a lot about Venus and Mars, but Mercury is actually well positioned to see right now. It's a bright object that just sort of appears in the eastern sky, and then it is swallowed up by the dawn and the sun coming up. So you got to be there while it's still dark, just before the sun comes up, and it'll be sort of like, if you want, a morning star, and it'll be up there. Notice what's going on here. You can sort of, if I position this just right, you can see that Earth, Venus, and Mars are kind of in a line. Now, didn't I just show you that in the night sky, how they were right next to each other, right? And then look back in the distance up here. I'll try to get my cursor up there so I can show you. See this little guy right here? That is it. That's Antares. I'm sorry, that is Regulus. And it is Leo the Lion. I'll turn the artwork off. I'll turn the stick lights on. That's a little bit easier to watch. And so what you see here is that from Earth, looking up at the sky tonight, we see Venus and Mars right next to each other. Venus is substantially brighter than Mars. It is half the distance, and it is twice as big. So Mars is actually moving, or we are positioning ourselves on Earth here, moving in this direction. So the sun is going to get in between us and Mars here fairly soon, I think the first week in October. Venus, on the other hand, is moving in this direction, getting closer to us all the time. Venus moves faster than the Earth. The Earth moves faster than Mars. So these positions are always changing. Now, remember I showed you in that other scene that Venus and Regulus should line up in about a week. So let me just do that. I'm going to flash forward to next Wednesday. Let's give it a little 5-second orientation and kind of reline up our planets here. I'll be darned, look at that. Look at what's going on there. The Earth, Venus, and Regulus are just right in a line there. And then remember I said that a week later, the planet Mars will be lined up with Regulus. Let's just try that. So by the time we have our next virtual sky program on July the 28th, then when we're looking up at the sky, sort of the same conditions will be in position for Earth and Mars. So I showed you what's going to happen in your view of the night sky. Look at the western sky. I try to identify the two things. Venus is really easy to see. Next to the sun, it's the brightest thing in the sky right now, and it will be getting brighter, and it will be with us for several months now. So it's going to be a western thing in your sky for a long time. Find Mars though, and it's easy to find right now because it's right by Venus. It'll be a little bit redder, but don't look for it to be the same size or the same brightness. It is really dim right now, and it's moving into a position where it's as far away from us as it usually is. Check out Mercury. And then one more thing I'm going to show you here. Let me just kind of move back to now. And if you are a morning person, which I think all of us should be a morning person about this time of year, those are the dogs barking in the backyard. This is kind of a cool alignment this way, but look what happens if I flip ourselves around. Check that out. Look at that. I didn't even notice until I was getting ready for the show tonight. But see how now we're looking from Mars. Imagine you're a Mars person and you're looking out at the night sky and you're just like checking out Venus and the Earth would look like they're right next to each other in the sky. And then framing them way in the background would be Jupiter and Saturn. So they are fairly far apart in the sky. And remember, everything on that side of the sun right now is actually a morning object. So if you get up just before dawn, kind of about 4:30 in the morning, it's still dark enough to see these things. Look for Mercury tomorrow. It goes very fast. So you only see Mercury for about 3 or 4 days. And then check out Saturn and Jupiter. So that's it. That's your planet watch for today. So I'm going to put the planets back to their right size and turn the microphone back over. I think it goes to Alex this time because he's got something to tell us about meteorites again.
Yes, you're right, Rick. So I'm here sharing.
Probably unshare, shouldn't I? There you go.
Be great. Yeah, so I'm talking about the resource of the week. This is kind of a continuation of our previous show, the Meteorite Gallery. This is actually the Center for Meteorite Studies. This is their website. So let me share that real quick. And more specifically, I'm just going to share kind of one of the many neat things you can do on this website. But this is the main webpage, meteorites.asu.edu. You have a lot of just information. You got a lot of newsletters on here. You can learn more about like who's the staff and everything. But one of the more interesting things is if you actually go to meteorites, there's a little tab called identification, and you can learn how to identify a meteorite. Now, I gotta say this because if I don't, the meteorite people might get a little bit upset. But the Meteorite the Meteorite Center does not take meteorites from the public to identify. So if you think you have a meteorite, don't send it to them. They will not look at it. They probably won't send it back. So if you have a meteorite, don't send it to them. There are other resources which you can get from other organizations, but they do have like a little quiz, what you might be a meteorite. They got some pictures of meteorites, if they're magnetic, just a very good resource. How can you tell if they're a meteor wrong, which is an earth rock that has similar characteristics to a meteorite, but not exactly. So if you have a meteor wrong or meteor right, and then they have some videos as well. But like I said, this is a website, you can learn more about public outreach. They have FAQs. But this Meteor ID is really neat because if you have a rock, that you might think is a meteorite, this is a good place to check it just behind the scenes. But again, don't send it to them because they won't do anything with it. They'll just send you back and they won't tell you. But yeah, so you can learn a lot about the Center for Meteorite Studies, and you can also learn about the School of Earth and Space Exploration more, and learn how to ID your own meteorites, or maybe you can start looking for them. So great resource to check, and just a nice continuation from last week's or 2 weeks ago, our show. So thank you.
Yeah, I wasn't here, as you guys remember, and I'll tell you a little bit about my travels in a second here. But I know that I wanted to make sure that was that you guys saw that as a resource, and I know they didn't have time to do it during the program. I spent too much time in the vault, I guess. That's really super cool. And then I also, just one thing I'd like to add to what Alex said is that there's actually something of an information thing that comes out every single month. So it's like a newsletter. So if you are interested in just kind of keeping track of what's happening in meteorite research and the huge variety of meteorites, across their research field, every month they feature a new one. And so there's a meteorite of the month, and you can go kind of read about it and see, or get onto their mailing list, and they'll actually sort of send you that information. So that would be cool. Okay, I'm going to try something a little bit different. I'm doing a slideshow of my summer vacation. Okay, this is like your Uncle Harold used to do after oops, hang on a second. It's going to take me just a second to set up here. Almost. And so what I was, where it's right here. Just 1 second. This happened to me once before. I think I can call this up. I actually had intended to actually kind of try to come on, but I just was out of bandwidth. There was big storms where I was. There really wasn't an opportunity, unfortunately, to join. I was going to just kind of come on and say hello, but I let everybody kind of handle this without me. But the idea of their trip was just we have this new travel trailer, and we went to Zion National Park. Now, I don't know if you were watching the news 2 weeks ago. You guys were involved in our program here. You were doing the meteorite studies, but up there they had this incredible storm, an inch of rain on a very, very tiny little geographical area of canyons, and it triggered these big, huge mudslides. So on our way into the park, we were stopped going in one direction. We took a 2.5-hour drive around to the other side, tried to get in the back door of the park, and we were stopped there because the road had washed out and there's a search and rescue going on. So it was really, really a big deal. We did make it the next day, though. So let me just kind of kind of just give you a little sort of sample of what's going on. And this has a purpose because I'm going to set up what we're going to be talking about in 2 weeks. Bear with me on this little video. My son was actually in the car behind us, and there's my little R pod, and he just thought it would be really cute just to sort of like do this little time-lapse film. Here we go through the big tunnel. If you've been to Zion, going in the eastern side, you have to go through this gigantic tunnel. And if you have a little R pod like I do, you have to actually wait, and you go one at a time. So we're making our way down into the canyon. It looks actually kind of sunny today. The big rainstorm was last night, according to this. Now I'm in my little campground. And here we are. Oops, I just sort of like dropped out. Okay. This is kind of what we discovered. So once we got in place and all this stuff, there was feet of mud that actually piled everywhere. That car is actually up on a tow truck and had completely mudded out. One of the storefronts that was kind of in this particular area was completely, the mud just blasted right through the doors and sort of like did this. So really, really dramatic, big red mud story. And the campground was all sort of like, there's layers of mud everywhere. It dried out very quickly. It sort of, the weather was nice for the next couple of days, and so we were able to kind of get done what we needed to get done, but that was kind of part of the adventure. So here's me and Luna. We're actually watching the Suns game. You guys were just, I think, about to start your program, and we sort of found a way to get the Suns game and do that. Did you know the Luna is a Modelo drinker? This is really where I wanted to show you. This is a feature in Zion called Watchman, this particular peak. The campground I'm staying is named after Watchman. And I used this particular peak to try some astrophotography. And so this is what we call landscape astrophotography. And so you see there's sort of, this is kind of like a dusk kind of thing. It's just after dark. To the eye, it's dark enough that you can't really see very much, but to a camera using large exposures, you can actually sort of start to get some of the color out of the peak because there's still some light in there, and start some stars. Several hours later, I was able to actually get more star field in this. And so I really wanted to take a moment and show you this type of photography. And we're going to actually take a really, really deep dive into this. 2 weeks from now, we're going to have guests that do this as a hobby, but they are absolutely amazing. And so if some of you remember some programs we did early on, about a year ago, I invited people from the local amateur astronomy community, and there are many groups here in town. And we all participated in a program about the great conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn. And then a little bit later, we shared sort of our telescopes and our time with the public in a Observe the Moon night, which is an international thing. And so I called the same group back, and they readily answered. They all sent me samples. They said, oh my gosh, this is great. I've got some samples. I want to show it to you. So in 2 weeks at our regular program at 7 o'clock, we're going to have some experts that really, really know how to do this share with us their secrets and what kind of equipment you need to have. And you will be surprised that nowadays, just kind of regular cameras can start to turn out images that are absolutely outstanding. So I tried to doctor this image a little bit, and I'm not really happy with the result, but sort of here's my clumsy attempt at sort of doing a little bit of doctoring to the image. The other reason to show you this is, remember we talked about the scorpion? Here's the head, here's Antares, the heart of the scorpion. Here's the tail, goes all the way down behind the peak, and the little stinger would be over here. And do you remember the name of these two stars? The ones that sort of are shoulders to Antares, the heart of the scorpion. Yeah, they were called Alniet. Both of them have the same name, and they're called arteries. Wanted to recall that. And then you can see up here the two Zubins, Zubin Esh-Shamali, Zubin El-Janubi, Branchian, and Zubin Hakkari, part of the Libra. And so just like I was pulling this stuff right off of the Sky Safari computer program and showing you those things tonight, here these objects are in the night sky, and now they're located. Now they're sort of like part of the scenery of Zion National Park. And anyway, it's kind of fun to do this, and we're going to just spend a lot of time with it in 2 weeks. So I hope you join us then. You're going to see some amazing things. I've already seen some samples of the image, and they're just absolutely blow you away. So thank you very, very much for attending tonight. I think it's been a great program. We actually did somehow manage to stay exactly perfectly on time. So I have time to get back to Kim and say, is there anything we forgot to say, Kim, or can I say goodnight? And we'll see everybody in 2 weeks.
Nope, you're all good. I think you can still catch the end of the Suns game. So
Excellent. Okay, so yeah, actually, my wife has it on in the room, and I've been avoiding watching it, but I think we are leading just barely. Jackie says 64-60, and we are halfway through the third quarter. So everybody
ask our trusty Alex Blanche what the score is. He's been
I have it pulled up. Yeah, the third quarter is over, and the Suns are leading 82-76.
Oh my gosh!
So
okay,
it's a close one.
we must be behind. We're delayed over here. Okay. Anyway, thanks everybody, and thanks for joining us again on this night where there's all kinds of activity going on in the Phoenix area. And keep looking up. Just make the clouds move away. Just sort of like to be patient. It's monsoon season, but there are times when the stars peek through, and you've got lots of the sky to look at. Okay. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you, everybody. Mm-hmm.